I'm having a really hard time wrestling with the fact that Christmas is this week. I mean, this month flew by. Usually, Caroline and I both, we're obsessed with Christmas. Caroline more so than me. As soon as Halloween's over, it's just like November is Christmas. And then you have Thanksgiving for a day, and then it's Christmas again in December. We're usually really obsessed with it. We usually watch at least 3 or 4 Christmas movies. We kind of have our go-tos. Christmas Story, Vacation, Home Alone, and Elf. Those are our 4. Like every Christmas we watch those movies, and we're hanging out with my in-laws, her side of the family yesterday for our Christmas. We were doing it with them, and we're sitting around the table and we're talking about this past month, and Caroline and I realized we have not watched a single movie, Christmas movie. Like we have just, it's Christmas time, and we haven't watched any of our Christmas movies. It's just flying by. I don't know why this month has not felt like Christmas for me. And I'm going to be talking about joy today, and I've been trying to think about, I don't know if I've experienced the joy of Christmas because I haven't seen Buddy the Elf. I don't know about you, but especially this year and just about every year, I feel like pressure to get the most out of Christmas. Like I feel pressure to get the most joy and the most good cheer and the most eggnog and the most of the music and the most of the Christmas lights. And I've got to get the most out of this season because it's supposed to be the happiest season of all. Anybody else feel that pressure? I got to watch all of movies. I got to turn on all the music, hang all the lights. We didn't even hang most of our lights this year. I don't want to miss out on anything. I feel like it's FOMO times 1,000. That's what December is. I just don't want to miss out. It's actually really ironic, and I've been thinking about this really just in the last few days as I've been thinking about how much I've missed out on this summer. Christmas is supposed to be the most wonderful time of year, and yet it ends up being one of the most stressful times of year, if not the most stressful time of year, because we don't want to miss out on any of the wonder. It's really ironic. I saw this study this past week where 88% of the people surveyed said they feel more stressed during December than any other month. Does that sound merry to you? It's supposed to be the most peaceful time of year, but then it ends up being the most chaotic because of all the added parties and events and traveling that it brings. In the same survey, I saw that the average couple said that they have at least 7 extra arguments during the month of December, the month of peace. Whose family are we going to go to? Where are we going to spend Christmas? How are we spending our money? Who's getting the gifts? Just think about all of the added things you get to argue about. It's supposed to be this time of indescribable joy. Again, this is the irony of Christmas because more often than not, it ends up leaving us with a sense of sadness. Because just like the year before, the magic came and the magic went away. And now we got to wait a whole another year to experience the magic again. And so it leaves us with this sense of sadness. And what I want to show you today is that while this may be just me, might just be the experience that I've had, maybe it's for some of you, but this is not the way it's supposed to be. In fact, the reason we celebrate Christmas is that the good news of Christmas actually causes joy. It produces joy. At its core, the message of Christmas is that God came into the world to bring you joy. The angels put it this way in their announcement to those shepherds on that first Christmas night about 2,000 years ago. We're going to look at this again. Same passage as last week, just we're going to focus on joy today. Read this with me, silently though, please. And in the same region, there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. And they were filled with great fear. The angel said to them, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news that will cause great joy, and it will be for all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who's Christ the Lord." Now that phrase, great joy, in the Greek, literally translated is mega joy. And I wish that they had translated it like that in the English, because that would be so cool to see in our Bible. That word great joy is really mega joy. So this news about the birth of Jesus wasn't just good news, it was good news that would lead to mega joy. I just kind of picture what happens in my house when Caroline and I tell our kids that we're going to Carowinds on a Saturday. The reaction is euphoria. It's jumping up and down. It's laughing. It's shouting even. It's hugging our leg. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. We gave them some good news, and the good news just created euphoria, mega joy. Or I was thinking about this woman I saw this past week, woman who just heard the good news that she had won the lottery. I mean, that is mega joy right there. She doesn't know that it doesn't actually last and she's going to end up bankrupt because they all do. But in that moment, she got great news that she is now a mega millionaire. And the mega millions have now given her this response of great joy. Here's another picture that comes to my mind when I think of good news that leads to mega joy. This couple on their special day. I don't know if you can really see their faces that well, but they're both overjoyed. It's like this girl is like, I finally found a man who wants to spend the rest of his life with me. And the guy's like, I cannot believe I suckered her into thinking that I'm worth spending the rest of her life with. And they're both just full of mega joy. I think on some level, this is what's going on in Luke 2. The angels have a really incredible announcement, and that announcement is going to cause a really incredible response to every single person who hears it. It's for all people. Good news that causes great joy. I have two questions that I want to get after today. First, what does it mean to have mega joy? What does that mean for you today? And then second, what is it about the news of Christmas that enables you to have it? That enables you to live with this kind of joy? So first, what does it mean to have mega joy? Well, joy is an emotion, but it's also more than an emotion. And if you've been around the Bible for a while, you know that joy is happiness. It's synonymous with happiness, but it's also deeper than happiness. It's more significant than happiness. One of the best ways I've heard it described is that happiness depends on what's going on around you, whereas joy depends on what's going on inside of you. Happiness is like the rain on a hot summer's day. Joy is like a subterranean river that can never be dammed up. It's always gushing underneath the surface. Happiness is about what's happening in your life. Joy is about what's going on in your heart. These are two similar things, but also very different things because happiness hinges on your circumstances. Joy transcends your circumstances. So, this news is supposed to do something inside of you that creates a subterranean river so that your soul is never in drought. It's never in a season where you're just dry and you're like, man, I've got no life. I've got no sustenance. You've got something inside of you that's always gushing and producing life. One author put it this way: joy is the settled assurance that God is in control of every detail of your life. It's the quiet confidence that ultimately everything will be all right, and the determined choice to praise God in all things. So, mega joy is this ability to rest, and it's the ability to be at peace with a sense of contentment and confidence and gratitude in the sunshine and in the rain. At the wedding, at the party, and at the graveside. The birth of a little baby and in the hospital. That's what joy is. And so this is what the good news of Christmas is supposed to produce in you, so that you can live with that kind of contentment and confidence every single day. So then the big question is how? How does the announcement that the angels are bringing 2,000 years ago do that in you? It's a big question. How does this announcement show us that God's in control and that everything's going to be all right? What is it about the birth of Jesus that creates a subterranean river of joy inside of us? This is what I want to spend our time looking at together today. And if you're taking notes, I want to show you two reasons the good news of Christmas creates mega joy in our lives. Or 2 reasons that the good news of Christmas can create mega joy in your life. Because you're going to see at the very end that just because it's there doesn't mean that you can have it. First, what this announcement shows us is that the presence of God is near. In other words, you don't have to go searching for joy because joy was sent to you in a person. It's already right where you are, and it's already available to you right now because God came into the world to dwell with you. John 1 says that the Word became flesh and pitched his tent right next to you so that he could live with you. And what I want you to see today is that it's in his presence where we actually find what the Bible calls fullness of joy. Look at how Psalm 16:9 puts it. Therefore, my heart is glad, and my whole being is full of joy. That's the subterranean river. My flesh dwells secure, for you will not abandon my soul to Sheol. You will not let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life, and in your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Joy isn't created from within. Joy is sent to us from above. So you don't have to go on vacation to find joy. Isn't that really good news for you millennials? I'm a millennial too. You don't have to go on vacation to find joy. You can spend your money on something else. You don't have to get more money or get a better job or get more status or clout to find joy. You don't have to find the perfect spouse to find joy either. Spoiler alert, they don't exist. We're all imperfect people. All you single people are like, no way, man, I'm finding the perfect one. Guys, you know it's not joy in the world and it's not joy from the world. It's joy to the world for a reason. Because as the author of Ecclesiastes said, he tried everything in the world and he experienced everything from the world and he still hated life. If you want a subterranean river of mega joy that transcends circumstances, trials, pain, all of that, you've got to find something that is otherworldly, and that thing has to be sent to you. This is the good news. This is Christmas. It was sent. It's here. I think our biggest obstacle to experiencing joy is the fact that we really don't believe Ecclesiastes. I mean, we say we believe it, but we live like we don't believe it. I don't think we actually get the fact that what our souls need and what our souls long for more than anything else in the entire world is to be close to our Creator. I don't think we actually believe that. I don't think we live as if what Adam had in the garden with Yahweh, walking with him and talking with him in this intimate, deep, meaningful friendship, that's why we're never satisfied, because we don't have it. Since we don't get that, I think we focus on everything around us and outside of us, and we don't focus on what's already been given to us. So the result of that is our emotions are like roller coasters. Our emotions hinge on our ever-changing circumstances. And so if you like rain, you're a happy person today. If you don't like rain, you're not a happy person today. You're just like this. Our hearts are restless because they keep clinging to transient things, hoping that they won't be transient. Like you buy the new phone and you just hope this time, this phone will not stink in 3 weeks. And then it does. The new car, the new job, everything that you cling to, it's transient. We're always searching, we're never finding. Happiness is always on the other side of just a little bit more because we don't get the fact that what we need more than anything is to be close to God. Now, the good news of Christmas that leads to mega joy is that God has come into the world to satisfy the longings of our souls with the only thing that can actually satisfy them, himself. You don't have to search for it. It's been sent to you in the person of Christ. The presence of God has come near. Now, this announcement creates a problem. And the problem is the fact that while our hearts long to be brought back into the presence of God, into friendship and fellowship and communion with him, our sin actually keeps us separated from him. Psalm 15, 1-2 says, Lord, who may dwell in your sacred tent? Who may live on your holy mountain? In other words, who can stand in your presence? We were made for your presence, but who can stand in it? He says, the one whose walk is blameless, the one who does what is righteous, the one who speaks the truth from their heart. Does that sound like you? Psalm 24, 3-4, who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? Same question. We're made for the presence of God. Who gets to experience it? The one who has clean hands, the one who has a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. So this is what I want you to see right now, this problem. The presence of God is near to us, and that's really, really good news, but it's only good news for people who can actually stand in it and live. Who among you can do that? The one who's blameless, the one who's righteous, the one who has clean hands, the one who has a pure heart, the one who never turns to idols. So who gets the mega joy of the presence of God? It's just like last week with peace. No one. Why? Because no one is blameless. Because no one is righteous. Because no one has clean hands. Every single one of you walked into this room, myself included, with blood all over our hands. Guilty. Every single one of us this past week turned to idols. The idols of sex, the idols of fame, the idols of money, the idols of power, the idols of man's approval. We chased those things and we hoped that they would satisfy us. And then we walked into this room and then we confessed those things and we said, man, we did it again, God. Who can stand in his presence? Rather than loving the light that emanates from the life of Christ, we chose to love darkness. It's John 3. Rather than worshiping the Creator, we chose to bow down to created things. That's Romans 1. Rather than enjoying the fullness of his presence, we've chosen to blind our eyes and numb our hearts so that we don't have to feel him, let alone deal with him. Guys, we all want to arrive at this utopian, idealistic place of life and life to the fullest. Every single one of us wants joy, to not be like a child tossed to and fro by the waves of ever-changing circumstances. We want to be at peace. We want to be in a contented rest. We want that subterranean river, but we don't want God. That's a problem. We all know that there are obstacles that keep us from joy. But what most of us don't get, and what Christmas shows us, what this message, announcement of Christmas exposes, is the fact that our main obstacle isn't out there. Our main obstacle is in here. It's in our hearts. We usually think it's the opposite. In fact, if I were to ask you, if you could just fill in this sentence, if you could fill in the blank, if you had one thing or if you could just change one thing about your life that would make you happy or that would give you joy, what would that one thing be? I can almost guarantee you 99.9% of you wouldn't say God. There's a problem at school with my parents, with my friends, or with the weather, with my health, with my finances, with my love life. If I just had someone to spend life with, then I'd have joy. If I just had a little bit more money. We usually think that if we aren't experiencing mega joy, something out there is to blame, right? Can you agree with that? Is that just me? This was true of me for a massive chunk of my life. And I'll just be, I'll be transparent with you. I won't tell the whole story again because I've shared it before, and I always accidentally share the same story over and over again, and I don't know it till you tell me afterwards, but I know I've shared this story before, so I'm going to spare you. But when I was in the 6th grade, I experienced some trauma. It wasn't like what a lot of you have experienced, but for me, it was traumatic. I was rejected by a girl as an 11-year-old in front of 250 junior hires. It was awful. If you haven't heard this story, I'll share it with you someday. All right, so come up and talk to me right afterwards if you want to. Every time I went to church, I got made fun of. Every time I walked into a room, I could hear the whispers and the snickers. And, oh, that's the guy who got rejected by the girl who will go unnamed. Most embarrassing moment of my life. And honestly, I can look back now that I'm 35 and I'm happily married for it's been well over a decade, 12 years? 12 years, good. I didn't have it in my manuscript, and that's so dangerous. I can share this story now, and I can look back on it, but I can honestly see how a massive chunk of my life was triggered by that moment. It was a massive problem for me. In my mind, I thought if there was a barrier between me and mega joy, it was that rejection and everything that the rejection created in my life. If there was anything keeping me from flourishing, from living life to the fullest, I didn't even know that was a thing when I was 11, but we're all chasing it naturally. It was that. And so I was convinced that if I was ever going to flourish, if I was ever going to have this inner peace and joy and happiness, I was going to have to fix what that event crushed. So I chased popularity so that I could gain some acceptance. I worked so hard to get success in sports. I liked sports, but I really just wanted respect. I wanted to walk into a room and not have people laugh at me. I wanted to walk into a room and have people admire me. So I tried so hard. I chased relationships so that I could feel valuable, so that I could feel accepted, like I mattered. I thought that I could create joy for myself if I just fixed all of those problems out there. Anybody else tried that before? Here's the thing. I got some popularity. I got some success. I got some girls. But do you know what I never got? Joy. Fixed all the problems. Got what I was looking for. But the one thing I was hoping that it would do for me, it didn't do. The problems outside of us are significant. They are weighty. They do feel like the worst things in the world. But the reality is they are not the main hurdles that we have to jump over if we want to arrive at joy. Because they aren't the things that are keeping us from the source of joy. What is keeping you from the source of joy? It's your sin. It's the fact that your hearts are spotted and your hands are stained and you're not blameless and you're not righteous. The main obstacle that you and I face is not outside of us, it is inside of us. And this is the problem that Christmas creates. Pride, envy, lust, deceit. Our desire to experience the good life apart from the giver of life. Everything that the Bible calls rebellion. We want the kingdom, we don't want the king. This is why the good news of Christmas is so good. When God sent his son into the world, he did it so that he could get rid of the one thing that keeps us from him and the one thing that keeps us from mega joy. The presence of God isn't just near. The presence of God is actually accessible. You can stand in it, and I can stand in it, and we can live because the Son of God bore our sins on the cross, creating a way for us to walk boldly into the throne room of God, curl up on his holy, transcendent, yet imminent lap and cry out, Abba, Father. The only person in the history of the world who has ever been righteous and blameless became condemned. The only person who has ever had clean hands and a pure heart, who never gave his allegiance to any other God, actually became sin. 2 Corinthians 5:21, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Amen? See, the good news of Christmas that leads to mega joy is this. The only person in the world who had access to the presence of God gave it up and was forsaken by God so that you could possess it. That's the good news of Christmas. Philippians 2:6-8, Christ Jesus, who being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking on the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. This is Christmas. This is the message of the angels. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. The barriers have been removed. Access has been granted. The presence of God has come near. And you can now possess it. Death of Christ has produced life for those who believe, and with that life comes great joy. The second thing I want you to see, the second reason that the good news of Christmas can give you mega joy today, is that the promises of God are sure. The promises of God are sure. Joy is a subterranean river that can't be dammed up by our struggles, can't be dammed up by our circumstances. And the reason for that is because it actually flows out of the knowledge that our struggles and our circumstances aren't our final destiny. They're not the end. Psalm 35 says, for his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. That's a promise. Isaiah 50:11, those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter the mountain of God with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them. Sorrow and sighing will flee away. John 16:22, now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy from you. Guys, joy has the ability to transcend trials and sorrow and pain because it's rooted in the promise that all of those trials and all of those sorrows and all of those pain are not the end. In fact, they are doing nothing less than enhancing the joy that's coming at the end. So Jesus describes this process like a mom giving birth. And if you're familiar with the Gospel of John, you know this example, this illustration. His point is that the pain of labor, which I've heard is the worst pain in the world, never experienced it. I passed out, almost passed out watching the shot part of it. I missed the days when men waited in the hallway. Lord willing, we're done. I could go into so much detail right now, but I'm going to not do that. The pain of labor doesn't diminish. She said, thank you. The pain of labor doesn't diminish the joy of holding the baby. The pain of labor adds to the joy. That's what Jesus is saying in this illustration. The sorrow that precedes the reward, the celebration, enhances the reward and the celebration. And this is true of literally everything. This is a law. Suffering does not have the final say. Caroline and I just started watching The Alpinist last night on Netflix. Anybody watch that yet? Watch it today. It's, if you like sweaty palms, it's basically about these men who climb the riskiest and most dangerous mountains. Most of it's like snow and ice, and it's like mixed climbing, so it's rock, snow, and ice. And they go to these mountains without any phones, so they can't call for help if they get in trouble. They go without any friends. They go totally alone, and most of them go without any rope at all. And so we just started watching this movie. It's a documentary last night. And again, our hands are just like sweaty the entire time. It's unreal. One of the guys said that 50% of alpinists actually die on the job. That seems low to me. That seems really low. But when he was asked why anyone would be stupid enough to try it, he said something like, and I'm going to paraphrase, I didn't write it down. It's actually because of the fact that it's deadly. It's because of the fact that it's hard. It's because of the fact that it's painful that the rush and the thrill and the joy of success is actually worth it. He said, if it wasn't dangerous, then surviving the climb wouldn't mean anything. If it was as easy as climbing the wall at the local playground, then it wouldn't matter. It's like, when your kid's like, watch me, and he climbs up the little fort in the backyard, you're like, woohoo! If a 30-year-old did that, you'd be like, cool, man. Like, well done. It's the fact that it's hard, it's the difficulty of the journey that actually produces the joy at the destination. And this guy's like, it's not stupid, it's worth it. Guys, we can have joy right here and right now in spite of our sorrow, in spite of our pain, because God has promised that our sorrow and pain will not have the final say. This is what I love about the message of Christmas. This is why it's such good news, because it doesn't call us into some frivolous, naive happiness that just pretends like nothing's bad. Like the message of Christmas says, no, this world is bad. It is unjust. It is unfair. There is sorrow. There is pain. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but the message of Christmas is, but don't lose heart because I've overcome it. This is the promise of Christmas. They are not the end. They're just part of the journey. So I want you to hear this. You might be lonely right now, but loneliness is not your final destination. You might be sick right now. And you might have a chronic illness, and you have suffered for years, and you will suffer for many more. Your illness is not your future. You might be sad now. You might really be struggling with depression right now. One day, though, your tears will be wiped away, and your sadness will be crushed forever. It's not the end. Your weeping will turn into laughing, your mourning into dancing, your struggle into rest, and your sorrow into joy. And what I want you to get right here and right now is that the good news of Christmas proves that all of that is true. It's not just a pipe dream. That's reality. The promise of that is sure. The birth of Jesus 2,000 years ago proves that the promises of God are trustworthy and that you can be filled with mega joy right here and right now in spite of your pain and in spite of your sorrow because they are trustworthy. And I need you to believe that right now. How does the birth of Christ do that? Well, it does it because the message of Christmas isn't just about the incarnation of Christ. It's also about the crucifixion and the resurrection of Christ, too. I know we celebrate the incarnation in December, we celebrate the crucifixion and resurrection in April, and we act like they're separate things, but they're not separate things. They go hand in hand, and you don't get one without the other. Incarnation, crucifixion, and resurrection are the good news of Christmas. We already saw this in Philippians 2. Christ was born so that he could die, and he died so that he could rise. Again, they all go together. He didn't become a baby and then like halfway into it was like, you know what, maybe I should die for everyone's sins. That was the plan from the beginning. That's why he was sent into the world. And then he didn't go into the garden and submit to the Father and say, I'm going to die, and then like just cross his fingers and say, well, I hope this works out. No, he knew he was going to rise again in spite of the brutality of the death. And so the good news of Christmas isn't just about the birth of Jesus. It's about his death and his resurrection too. And all of that shows, and I want you to see this, I want you to follow me. All of that shows that the promises of God are sure. The reason that all of that shows that the promises of God are sure is because every single one of them were carried out in the birth and the death and the resurrection of Jesus. He proved it with his life. He proved it with his death. That the greatest humiliation leads to an even greater exaltation. Jesus proved that. That the deepest wounds lead to an even greater reward. That the greatest suffering produces an even greater salvation. That the greatest sorrow produces and leads to an even greater joy. Jesus proved that with his life and his death and his resurrection. It was for the joy that was set before him that he went through the cross, that he endured the cross because he knew what was on the other side. And so even when the journey was hard, and even when the struggle was overwhelming, and even when the sorrow was too much to bear, Jesus believed the promises of his Father. Jesus submitted to the will of his Father, and Jesus became obedient to the point of death. And in every single act of obedience, God kept his word. That's the good news of Christmas that leads to mega joy. You can trust him. His promises are sure. Your pain is not the end. Death is not your final destination. Sorrow will not have the final say. You don't have to ignore it. You can endure it with hope. If you want to have mega joy today, let me encourage you to do these two things. Live in his presence and believe his promises. And that leads to the final application. We're going to close. Guys, do you know that in order for good news to actually lead to great joy in your life today, you have to make it personal? I just think about those pictures I showed you at the very beginning. The woman winning the lottery check. And I was thinking back to those pictures, and I was just trying to imagine if I got a call today from my twin, Seth. Seth called me up and he was like, Benjamin, because that's my family name. Benjamin, I have great news for you. I just wanted to let you know I won the lottery and now I'm a millionaire. I would be like, man, that's really good news. That's amazing. I honestly think I would be happy for him. It would be good news. It'd be a lot better than a lot of bad news that he could call and give me. But I want you to understand this. If I heard my doorbell this afternoon and I went and I checked the door and there was someone there with a big old check for $250 million, that would be good news that produced great mega joy in me. And you know why? Because that'd be my money. Wouldn't be my twins' money. It'd be my money. It would be personal. Good news only produces great joy if it's for you. And this is what I'm afraid of. Many of us Christians here in the South believe in the good news. We believe in God, and we believe in Jesus, and we believe in Christmas, and we believe that God sent his son into the world to save the sins of the world, and it is good news. But we act like it's good news for everybody except for us. Guys, the message of Christmas can only be one of two things. It can either be good news for other people, or it can be good news that causes great joy for you. I think some of you believe that the presence of God is accessible, but you live as if it's accessible for everyone except for you. I think there are many of you in this room who believe that the promises of God are good, that the promises of God are sure, that they're trustworthy, but you live as if your trial and your sorrows and your pain are the only ones that his promises don't apply to. It's really easy for you to speak the promises over other people, but then when you don't get what you want or when you're suffering, you're just like, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't see me. I think many of you believe that God has a plan and a purpose for everyone, but then you act and you talk and you pray and you dream as if he has somehow forgotten yours. You're the exception. It's good news for everybody else. You believe that Christ was born to give you life and life to the fullest, but you live as if it can only be found in things out there. If that's you, I can tell you what you need to do right here and right now. You need to make the gospel, you need to make the good news of Christmas personal again. In fact, this is what it means to live a gospel-centered life. Minute by minute, day by day, we are reminding ourselves that it's not just true, but we are holding the truth in our hearts and making it ours. Some of you need to do that right now. I'm going to invite you to bow your heads and close your eyes with me as we respond. I want to invite you to thank God for the gift of his son. I want you to thank him that he didn't just send his son for the world, but he sent his son for you. I want you to own it today. Ask the Spirit of God to open your eyes to it so that it becomes real to you. And if you're here today and there's never been a moment in your life where you've made that personal, make today the day. Take a moment and pray, and then I'll lead us to the table.